really like this episode of the Doom Patrol. It had like two parallel storylines going on, both of which were very like they had action in them. They had character development, but also they had action and suspense, which so they did two things well. They were interesting enough to keep you engaged. The pacing was good, and they also shed a little bit more light on characters, multiple characters. And one of the things, even though I like Doom Patrol, my biggest complaint with it so far is sometimes I think it's too slowly paced or it has a lot of slow episodes. But this episode I thought picked up the pace while still doing character development. I like both of them a lot. I'll start with, I guess a highlight of this episode is this is the first live action appearance of an obscure Doom Patrol villain called the Beard Hunter, who was created in the Grant Morrison era of Doom Patrol to be a comic relief character. And but he was so weird and out there that he probably is very memorable to the writers, which is why they remembered that character and adapted him into live action. But the Beard Hunter in the show is a lot different from the comics. I mean, the same way in the comics, he was like after beards, but in the comics, he didn't have any powers. Like, he wasn't eating beards and like tripping out and had the power to locate someone by eating their beard. They made that up for the show. He didn't have any powers in the comics. He was just this guy with a hormone deficiency that didn't allow him to grow beards. So he like became resentful and kind of obsessed with men who did have beards, and he was killing them and collecting their beards, like skinning their beards or shaving them off, and he would have them in his place. I don't remember him ever eating anybody's beard. I think he only appeared like in one issue of Doom Patrol, but I don't remember him consuming beard hair as like some kind of weird fetish or anything. And he didn't get powers from it or at all. He was like a regular guy who was just crazy. But, the show took that. The show writers, I think, took that and ran with it by giving him some superpowers, able to track down beards. And just like in the comics, like in the show, he was hired by the Bureau of Normalcy to track down the Chief. In the show, he did try to kill the Chief for his beard, and the Chief wound up defeating him single-handedly. But he wasn't working for any kind of bureau. He was just this crazy person, if I recall correctly. But the show writers, I think, are trying to tie a lot of things together for simplicity's sake by making him, a contractor hired by the Bureau of Normalcy to find the Chief who's missing. That wasn't anything that happened in the comics. In the comics, he was just some regular serial killer who just saw the Chief had a beard and wanted to kill him. That was like the whole storyline, really. But the show is trying to weave that into the larger mythology they're setting up and connect it to other people. And, they're giving him superpowers. And I don't know the actor's name, I'll put it up. But I thought that the writers and the actor and the director did a very good job with this character. He's continuing the trend of very weird and memorable Doom Patrol villains that show up briefly and serve a purpose, and who knows if they'll come back. Like the Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. And not just villains, but also side characters. Willoughby Kipling, who was with them when they fought the Cult of the Unwritten Book. So, that does seem to be the Doom Patrol's thing, to take, some obscure characters from the lore, not always that obscure, and to find ways to make them weird and quirky for live action from the comics. So that was interesting. And I liked how they seemed to, when the Beard Hunter fought Cyborg and was showing a lot more, physical adeptness than he ever showed in the comics, they, hinted the fact, they continued that hint that something is wrong with Cyborg. And I don't think the show's ever told us the genesis of where they make it seem like he's about to break at any second and, go psycho on his teammates. But I don't think the show so far has really told us why that is. Unless it's supposed to be so obvious we're supposed to see it. Like, I don't know if it's supposed to be something wrong with his programming or he has pent-up rage and aggression from suppressing, like his human side or something, and one of these days he's going to flip out. I'm not sure exactly where the show was going with this, or if we're supposed to know yet. Maybe they will tell us, like in the Cyborg episode that's probably coming soon. Because there are only like 3 or 4 episodes left this season. And speaking of, character-centric episodes, this is a good segue into the other storyline in this episode, which was largely a Chief episode, where we get more about his history and his origins. And I guess the Chief is really old, much older than I thought he was. Like, he was running around like in 1913. That's older than the Chief, I think, is supposed to be in the comics. The Chief wasn't really supposed to be... I don't think he was supposed to have like an extended life or be immortal or anything in the comics. He was just an older guy who was a genius. And he did do some government work in the comics, but I don't think he was ever tied to like investigating like paranormal things like the show. I think, again, like I was saying, they changed things for the show to make characters more, to simplify things and make characters link together. Because I think the show is basically trying to say that in the old days, the Chief worked for the Bureau of Oddities to investigate and explore strange phenomena. But over time, that morphed into the Bureau of Normalcy, which instead of, exploring or just, cataloging weird stuff, they were trying to hunt them down and exterminate them. So that's their way of blending those two things together to make them, cohesive for the show. But in the comics, the Chief's work as a younger man, or in the past, working for the government, didn't have anything to do with the Bureau of Normalcy later on. That was something, not in any of the comics I read, that was something they wove together for the show. Basically, I think just to make things tighter in terms of plotting. But I liked seeing, the Chief in his old days, when he found love with that immortal lady. And, I think being with her is and being in that environment or that part of that magic or ambiance or whatever is what has made him a long-lasting or long-living person. And, he has from the beginning, from his youth, or at least, he wasn't young back then, but in the past, he's always kind of been interested in the weird and the strange, which fits with the comics. I mean, in the comics, the Chief is the same way, but in the comics, he was kind of a mad scientist, and he had a sinister side. The show hasn't really shown that yet. So I'm wondering if they'll really go there and make the Chief in the show kind of as dark and nefarious as he's been in the comics sometimes. Because it seems like they're trying really hard to make the Chief, at least in this episode, he seemed like a decent guy. It seems like the writers are trying to make us root for and like the Chief. So if they're going to make us like this character, I wonder if they're actually going to go through and turn him evil at some point, like he kind of is in the comics. Like, are they going to go there with him? Or, are they not? We'll see. The cliffhanger of this episode, the Beard Hunter, I think, because, he consumed the Chief's beard hair, found, I think, where he was located in the present day. And he was, like, in that puppet mask in this weird room somewhere downstairs. And, the cliffhanger is, that creature that was with the Chief younger, that kind of antler creature, showed up and seemed to attack the Beard Hunter. Now, where were they when he went down the stairs? I'm wondering if that's supposed to be in the comics. The Bureau of Normalcy had this base that was connected to the secret lair underneath the Pentagon. And so I'm wondering, and it was really dark down there and stuff. And I'm wondering if that's where the Beard Hunter was supposed to be in the episode, the cliffhanger. Like the Chief is being locked somewhere in the Bureau of Normalcy's place down in the Pentagon. Although Mr. Nobody has the Chief, so I don't know why he would be with the Bureau of Normalcy. But that's just what I thought of. But, we'll see. I could be totally off base. I mean, we'll eventually, I'm sure, find out where the Chief is, because that's what the show's leading up to. So, all in all, good episode. I think I kind of maybe meandered a bit in this review, but I was excited and had a lot to talk about. And I like this. This is, I think, was one of my favorite episodes this season. I had some others that I really liked, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and rank the episodes, but, I thought this was a good one. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube and subscribe to the channel because I appreciate your viewership, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.